wins here. Other than Rd.2.
Oh, he's done it!
Look at these two go!
Oh, he's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been!
Hello and welcome to the second round of the Stockcar Pro Cup Series for 2022. This is Formula SimRacing, and last week we were at Road Atlanta for the first race of the season, which was cut short, unfortunately, due to some technical issues. But we're here today for the first oval race of the season. We're at the Gateway 150 here at the Worldwide Technology Raceway in the USA, a newly leased track for rFactor 2. Two races coming up. Sprint and a feature race. Myself, Cameron, Rodger and Zach Sweeney bringing you through the action today. And Zach, we certainly had an entertaining start last week, but let's see how this one goes and what you're feeling as we get in towards the ovals.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. I think we saw, obviously, with the road course, we had a bit of a glimpse of it at Road Atlanta with the sprint race, which was a really, really good race. Great way to sort of test the water a little bit, see where people are. But now, you know, we go from road courses to ovals, and while the ovals on paper look, oh look, they're just turning left, it's easy peasy. No, it's not. It's a little bit more tricky than that, of course. Maintaining that in qualifying, you know, it's not just, you know, going out there and setting the best lap. You've got to have sort of an average. So even in qualifying, you've got to have some level of consistency. Then you've got the two races, maintain your tires, your fuel, your track position, all these things they have to take into account while still trying to turn the car, because they're going at quite high speeds. These cars are very, very sensitive. So even though you are only turning left twice, granted, it is still so difficult in order to keep it on track and still go quick.
Absolutely. And the cool thing about this track as well is, as you see on the image, the two corners really sort of turn 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4, they're completely different around here. 1 and 2 is a lot tighter, and that obviously changes the way that you have to approach the track. But here is the calendar for this season, just a short 4-race one. We had Road Atlanta last week, as I said. Then we're here for Gateway 150. Next week, we have the California 175. Then a couple of weeks after that, we have the Daytona 225, which everyone, of course, wants to win. It's going to be an awesome roundup to 2022 after the main season, including back in August. And here are the standings after the first race. Rd.2 Simoncic taking the victory there in the sprint race. As we said, there was technical issues, so points were not given for the feature race there. Only the sprint race counted, with Jake Dennehan, who was your pole position driver on that day, just 1 point behind. But Rd.2 Simoncic is not here today, so Jake Dennehan has some good opportunities as we get there. So I think, Zach, this is certainly one of those days where the championship leader isn't showing up. It's a great opportunity for everyone else to get themselves involved in this championship.
Oh, for sure, especially when the driver's Yanni Simicic. You're not complaining at all if Simicic doesn't turn up. Of course, he's got slightly bigger and better things to be getting on with, but especially in such a short championship as well, with only 4 total rounds, you've got to turn up if you want any chance of succeeding. Unless there's sort of drop rounds and things like that in place. But there's such a short amount of time in order to recover if you haven't. If you haven't been there for each week, and even if you are here, you have to deliver. And this is a perfect opportunity, because now if sort of Jake Danahan bottles it, or anyone else bottles it, it just brings Simicic back into the mix. And so it is going to be a case of just trying to maximize the opportunity. Maybe they come into this one with a bit more of a cautious mind, because granted, they might not necessarily get the win, but if they can set off a sort of second, third, fourth, fifth, that's still a decent chunk of points and a decent margin as well.
Yeah, it's certainly something that I would, as a driver, really want to pounce on, and especially when it's such a short season, it's hard for someone to come back. But here we are into the qualifying session. As we mentioned at the beginning there, this is a group qualifying session, so it's not all the drivers at once. There'll be groups of around 4, 5, 6 drivers at a time in reverse championship order that go out every 2 minutes. So as the session continues, we'll get more and more drivers coming out. And as they know the time they're supposed to come out on, and therefore be seeing the championship contenders come out to the end of this session. It is a 3-lap consecutive run, which is the important factor. Not just your fastest lap, it is the average of those runs. And Zach, that is probably the hardest bit in this qualifying session, is getting to a stage where you can have that consistent lap. It may only be effectively 6 corners around here, but they're very difficult, and it's difficult to keep that momentum going the whole time.
Oh, for sure. Especially, in a sense, it's kind of harder to do it when there's only 4 corners. Because if you mess up one of them and you completely kill your momentum, that's run down. All it takes is sort of one twitch going into one corner, not getting quite as good a run coming off of it. You have to maintain that momentum all the way through. You have to keep that minimum speed up, because as soon as it drops, you are just you can't recover from that. There's no opportunity to recover. It's not like, say, at Spa or the Nordschleife or anything like that, where you can sort of make a bit of a mistake, then recover it in the next corner, because around here there's no other corner really to get it back. There's no other corner to build up your momentum. As soon as it's gone, it's dead. And also with that, you have to make sure your outlap is perfect. You have to sort of, in a sense, have a decently quick outlap, get your tires and everything warmed up quickly, get yourself warmed up as well, and then straight away get into the things. Because if you don't start on the right foot, you're not going to end on the right foot either.
Absolutely, as we're seeing Sonneveld here coming across the line as it stands. Kevin Morville is leading the way on a 1:43.8 mile an hour, and Sonneveld is leading actually as it stands, having completed only 2 laps so far with a 43.7. And as we say, we're going to be speaking in miles an hour, at least for the qualifying laps around here. It is around a 31-second lap, but we'll use miles an hour for the sake of the average speed that we are looking for over the course of the 3 laps. There's purple there as well for Sonneveld in that second lap. And generally, the speed continues to increase as you build up some momentum. And across the line, Sonneveld, where's he going to go? He's going to go to second place, just 0.2 of a mile an hour behind Kevin Morville. But Morville from that first group leading the way and doing quite a good job of it so far.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it is going to be difficult to sort of maintain that pole position all the way through, because, as you say, reverse championship order. So as we go through the groups, you would argue that the higher caliber drivers are going to come through. They are going to put those good laps in. But at least for now, Kevin Morville, he's sort of topped what is 2 groups essentially. So, for someone that's, jumping in as sort of a reserve because of sort of slightly shorter numbers, he's not doing too bad at all. And he's, the quickest, at least so far, of the academy drivers that have jumped in for this race. So yeah, he's not doing it at all. But again, we'll have to see how things get on. But again, all it can come down to is the smallest of mistakes. It doesn't matter if you're Yanni Simicic, you're still human. And you can still make that mistake. So, there definitely could still be some shakeups.
Yeah, there certainly could. And we're seeing here some pretty big laps coming in there. Liam Howder already on a 1:44.4. And unlike, obviously, in timing sense, you want to get the biggest number, not the shortest here. And there goes Liam Howder to the top by 0.2 of a mile an hour with the fastest average speed into the 1:44. Is the first person into the 1:44 average there. And that is looking pretty nice for him. And of course, the drivers will just continue to come out as the groups go on. As mentioned, they are every 2 minutes. The next group of 4 or 5 drivers will be coming out. And here's Vlietstra across the line for ETC and goes up there into 9th place as it stands. But of course, only 2 completed.
has to make this last one count. You can see now running through turn 2 and down the back straight, you can sort of take a bit of a chill pill. You just have to eye up the next corner and make sure you get it right. Turn 3 and 4 a little bit more open, so you can definitely carry a bit more speed through, but he has to nail it, because right now on the fringes of the top 10, and we're waiting for a couple more people. There you can see that Loic Moynier just getting inside the top 10, also Martin up to P11, so Vlietstra really has to make that one count, and again, a bit of a tap to the wall. That is definitely going to tarnish his momentum, and with 3 laps completed, that could definitely harm his average just a little bit, or it's actually not at all. He's gone up to P3, so even with that slight wall tap, he's definitely not done too bad.
Certainly not, as Mounier is also on a lap with a 1:45 in that first lap, which is, I believe, the fastest at least we have seen, and looking pretty good. Coming towards the line, where can the Frenchman put himself up? Only up to 5th place, so couldn't keep that going. Lost a lot of speed there on that final lap, dropping down towards a 41, and that is just the tricky part. The tires start to go off, and you start to overheat them a little bit. It's hard to keep that one going, and that just shows you maybe going a little bit too fast on that first lap overall slows down your average.
For sure, you have to keep a bit of a rhythm. It's like with marathon running or anything like that. If you start off too early, if you sprint at the start, you're going to be absolutely knackered come sort of the 2nd or 3rd kilometer or whatever it is. And it's the same here, because especially for the outside tires, the right-hand side tires, they are doing a lot of work. They're traveling a much further distance than the left-hand side on the inside. And, you know, even after 3 laps of giving it absolutely everything, of course, these aren't going to be quite the speeds we're going to see in the race, because everyone's going to calm down just a little bit. But in qualifying, you've got to get out there and you've got to give them absolute hell. Those tires are going to be screaming. And of course, as they overheat, as they sort of slightly wear a little bit over those 3 laps, yeah, they're not going to be too pretty, and they can sort of catch you out just a little bit. And, you know, you're going to gain a lot more by conserving them all the way through. But then you are going to gain by going really fast at the start and then really slow at the end, because, you know, that's not how averages work. Averages, you know, if you want to keep it consistent, you've got to stay consistent. And by having a big range between your fastest and your slowest definitely isn't at all. But Elliot is, wow, that is a stonking lap so far.
Yes, certainly is. 0.6 of a lead over Liam Howard as well. And here comes Victor Ivanov towards the line. He goes up to 2nd, just 0.044 behind Ryan Elliott as well. Doing a good job there for Tribute Racing is Victor Ivanov, missing that first race, but coming in strong at this 2nd race of the season. Victor's definitely one of these drivers who loves a bit of NASCAR in real life, and coming towards the Stockcar Pro Cup Series as well, was really looking forward to that, and getting himself up into 2nd place. But of course, more drivers still to come, with just 16 out of the 35 we have here today. Setting laps so far. But that's also a big one from Ryan Elliott, because his single fastest lap is only 4th fastest. But in terms of average, he's the quickest, and that just shows you how just the little margins make a big difference.
It is going to be the smallest of things, and we were saying pre-broadcast, of how the fastest person on track isn't going to take pole. It's not that type of qualifying where it's like, oh sweet, I got a really good lap, I hooked it up on this one, and then you start pole. No, again, it's about maintaining that consistency. You almost have to come into qualifying with the race mentality, at least for only 3 laps, to sort of get into that rhythm, and it does sort of show you who might be pretty good, because as we saw with not entirely sure who it was, I think it was Loic Moynier maybe, who had a really good first lap and then fell off. That doesn't bode too well for the race. So this qualifying session definitely is something a bit different, and again does show who are the sort of the qualifying merchants and who definitely can rely on their race pace a bit more.
Absolutely, and here comes Lianos towards the line. 45.0 on that first lap, dropped down a mile an hour almost to a 44.1, so averaging a 0.5, and that just shows you that first lap does seem to be the quickest of a lot of these drivers, where you have that peak grip from the tyres, and that is of course the important factor also around this track. You'll see a lot of drivers trying to get down low into the corner, have the shortest speed, or shortest line I should say, but it just makes that exit a little bit more difficult, and it just uses those tyres that little bit more. So you do have to be factoring that in just a little bit, but Lianos there goes up in towards 6th place as it stands, and doing a nice job there, but 0.3 behind, so it's actually still pretty close at the top.
It is very, very close. As we said, the smallest of margins definitely are going to make some of the biggest differences. So, going to be very, very interesting indeed. This is Musadis at the moment, P15. Unfortunately for him, I think he's now only just started his third lap. So, 1.2 miles an hour back off the pole time. But still, it's to the margin. So far, our top 20 are separated by 2 miles an hour average, which, when you think about it, when you think how quickly these cars are going to accelerate by 1 or 2 miles an hour, you put that into perspective, it's not much.
It really isn't, and that is the important factor. Look how short this track is. Well, it's 2 kilometers long, 1.25 miles, and pretty much 2 corners. Of course, they're named for in ovals, with the entry and exit being separate corners, but it really is just 2 corners and just 2 opportunities for the drivers to do something different, and therefore the times are staying pretty close indeed. And as you'll see on the tower as well, the drivers with the dot next to their name, they're the academy drivers who have stepped up into pro for this race. But how is Pinataro going to do as he comes to sign? Things actually just at the bottom of the drop down at this moment in time, but we'll have to see when he completes that second lap. And there it comes up, a 44.8, and it's actually Celia Via with a 45.0 who's leading this group.
Not doing too bad whatsoever. And again, as we say, as the groups go on, you would expect them to get slightly quicker. So we will definitely have to, just sort of see who's doing what at certain points. But certainly, so far, this group does seem to be just a little bit quick. There you go, Via up into third place with only 0.07 off the pole time of Ryan Elliott so far. So again, not doing too bad, but still got one more lap just to try and bump that average up just a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things where you're just sort of waiting for something to happen as the groups go on. You're sort of saying, are these guys going to go quicker? Are these guys going to go quicker? And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Indeed, and here comes Pinataro out of the final corner. Fun fact about Pinataro, he bumps off the wall there outside turn 4. You can actually see that sort of bit of tech pro barrier sticks out, and unfortunately is a bit closer to the track, and some drivers are hitting it. There goes Pinataro up in towards 8th place. For TX3, but yeah, he was actually supposed to be retiring, and then he saw this series and decided to come back for it because he likes this format of racing so much, which is a pretty good one to see for the Italian driver. Hopefully he can try and get a little bit further up.
Yeah, hopefully, because if he likes it so much to bring him out of retirement, you'd expect him to be at least decent. No disrespect, but yeah, no, he's so far, I mean, definitely not, doing the worst of jobs in the world. So yeah, we'll have to see how he gets on during the races. This is Damien Scovron just on his run. He is someone that you would definitely expect to be towards the sharp end. He did show some really good pace at Red Atlanta, but unfortunately, if I do remember correctly, he just couldn't quite hook it up, whether it be for his own fault or something else. Pinataro actually disqualified from this session, so that's slightly unfortunate. But Damien Scovron, he's definitely one to watch, I would say, because again, of what he showed last week and how he wants to sort of redeem himself from that.
Yeah, exactly, and it had a pretty decent result as well, which is what you want to see. Of course, his teammate going on to take the victory there is the pits that he needs to try and come back here at Gateway, coming through the final couple of corners. Borja Milan there jumping up into 8th place. Ricardo Costa up into 14th. Let's see where Scovron can get himself for Burst Esports coming around the final corner as we get him jumping up into 7th place. Fabian Ballet going to the top with a 44.8 average, 0.15 quicker as well. He was definitely one of those oval masters. And I believe that is pretty much all the drivers now coming in to try and do their laps, which is good to see. But it looks like it's going to be Fabian Ballet on that pole position, Zach. And I think he's certainly showing his oval speed, having had a standout performance at Apple Valley last season.
Beautifully done from Fabian Barley. Yeah, you can, only 0.1.5 miles an hour, not much in it at all. So great effort from Ryan Elliott, just considering that he is, he was from one of the earlier groups, and you would expect him maybe to be a little bit further down. But no, he's really run out of the park. It's going to be a great front row between those two. But yeah, Barley, just brilliant stuff. But again, we were talking a little bit earlier on about someone breaching into the 144 miles an hour being really quick, and then at the end, the pole time is a 144.8 miles an hour. So as we said earlier, there's nothing in it whatsoever. You really had to have the finest of margins. It was almost just sort of getting that perfect run, making little to no mistakes, and that's what Barley did. He delivered, and well, now he's going to get the rewards from it and start from pole.
Absolutely. And while the drivers just sort themselves out for the sprint race in a couple of minutes' time, we'll get a quick message from our sponsor. Welcome back to the second round of the Stockcar Pro Cup Series for FSR 2022. We just had qualifying Fabian Belle taking that pole position after the 3-lap average group qualifying session here for the Gateway 150. We're in Illinois for the Worldwide Technology Raceway, a new addition to rFactor 2. And we've got a sprint and a feature race coming up in the Stockcar 2018. 22 and 67 laps are coming the way of the drivers, and Zach, it may sound like a higher lap count, but of course the laps are so short here that the opportunities will come thick and fast.
Oh yeah, it's like I looked at earlier on when you were giving me sort of the debrief, and I was like, 67 laps, really? And then you were like, it's a 30-second lap. I was like, oh yeah, right, of course, yeah, no, fair enough. It is a very, very short lap. They do tick down very, very quickly. Well, tick up, I guess, in terms of the lap counter. You get up into the high numbers very, very quickly. You know, 22 laps, 30-second lap, that's only sort of 10, 11, 12 minutes at a push. And then 67 laps is only going to be half an hour. But in that amount of time, it's going to be so densely packed of action. We're probably going to have, you know, long trains. And with it being such a short lap as well, with it being over racing, expect a bit of carnage and chaos, a couple of cautions along the way. So, yeah, no, even, you know, on paper, it might be a bit of a simple race. It's definitely not going to be.
It certainly is. And there's, of course, the chance of cautions as well. We have Anthony driving the safety car for these guys. And if a caution comes out, they are going to have to sit back. They're going to have to slow down. And, of course, the pit stops will be all important for that factor. We're looking at a fuel tank of around 40 laps, give or take. Of course, for the sprint race, that's going to be fine. But for the feature race, they will have to make a pit stop and take tyres. And the tyres, I think, Zach, are going to be a big talking point around this track. Because of how slow the corners are in comparison to the big ovals, you actually push on the tyres a lot more. You overheat them. And we already saw in qualifying, even after 3 laps, the lap time starts to drop off. So over a 40-lap stint, you can just imagine how much the drivers slow down.
Oh, it's going to be dreadful, especially for the outside tyres, for the right-hand side tyres. They're going to be doing a lot of work under a lot of load and, yeah, not be feeling too pretty when you get sort of to the latter stages. So already we're seeing a couple of cars off, even just in the warm-up laps. And that is something to be expecting with that is just not...
Fortunately, this is practice.
Yeah. Fortunately, this is practice. So get it out the way, get it done. And then, obviously, fingers crossed you won't do it in the race. But... yeah, no, it's the tyres, the fuels, things like that. Are people going to sort of sacrifice a couple of seconds to make sure they're a little bit quicker? Because it is just the payoff. Because while there's not that many corners for you to properly utilize the tyres, having the tyres does mean a hell of a lot more, even with less corners. You know, you can make up a lot per corner versus people that are going to be on some very, very dead tyres.
It's going to be a tricky one for the strategists in the team to try and work out. That is for sure. I definitely wouldn't want to be the one trying to work that one out, because you have to get it right. Because with the fuel tank lasting so long, you do have that ability to, of course, make some quite interesting decisions. You can go 10 laps earlier than someone, but if you do that, you're going to wear the tyre or have more worn tyres by the end of the race. And I think that last 5 laps, Zach, is going to be really where it comes down to it. If there's a late caution or something like that, or maybe just people who've saved their tyres, that's really where it's going to come into play.
For sure. They're going to, definitely thank themselves for having the best tyres towards the end of the race, because in sort of a series like this, in a format like this, anything can happen at any point. So yes, if it happens a little bit earlier on or towards the midpoint of the race, you're like, whatever, it's not the end of the world. And also it does give help for some people that have had sort of a bad run throughout their race. If there's a late caution towards the end and they can dart in for some fresh tires, some other people are like, no, I don't really want to risk this track position and stay out of some older ones. Again, we're going to have a pretty good finish of differing in strategies, because a lot of things definitely are on the cards. A lot of things definitely have the capacity to work. And again, it's just going to come down to who can keep their nose clean, because again, we talk about carnage, we talk about chaos. You don't want to be the one causing it. You don't want to be the one getting involved in it. And if you can just keep your nose clean, guaranteed you're probably actually going to be looking quite good in this race.
Yeah, there is, of course, damage to worry about as well. Damage repair is, of course, enabled, so the drivers will be able to get those repairs, but they may go a lap, 2 laps down through the process of doing that because of the lap being so short around here. If they're lucky with a caution, they might be able to get their laps back, and we did see this in Indy Pro. We saw Philip Kraus. He was in the wall massively at Apple Valley, but he ended up winning that race, such is the way that things work out. So you've always got to just keep going, even in a shorter race. It's only going to be 30, maybe 40 minutes of racing in the feature race. You still got to keep going and be there at the front so that you can take advantage of those opportunities.
Got to be in it to win it at the end of the day, and keep going, because as we say, it's motor racing, especially when it comes to over racing. Anything can happen at any point, so you just have to keep going, keep chugging along, even if you're towards the back end of the pack. But again, we'll have to wait and see. It's obviously the first over race of the season. It's the first time we've been in these stock cars for the FSR Winter Series. It's something to definitely look forward to. With sort of that unknown, that uncertainty. Even at Road Atlanta, we didn't quite know how things were going to go because of how tricky these cars can be to drive. But now we get them on the ovals, a short oval as well, which in of itself is very, very difficult. But 2 races, and well, I'm sure we're going to find out all the answers to our questions very shortly.
Yes, so just remind you of the schedule. We had Road Atlanta last week with only the sprint race counting. So that obviously changes the way that the points totals have worked, because effectively 40 points were lost from that feature race. And that maybe helps some drivers, maybe doesn't help some drivers. We'll have to find out. Gateway today, the 150, 2 races, sprint and feature we've got for you here. And then we have the California 175 and the Daytona 225, which will be standalone feature races. So there'll be full-length races, about 90 laps at each of those tracks coming your way. So there'll be a lot more of an endurance test. Today is a bit of a racecraft test, let's say. And just to remind you of the standings as well, Yanni Simicic for Burst Esport leading the way by just a singular point from Jake Dennehan of Netrex Grand Prix. Those two had an amazing battle with Chris Shepherd there for the final podium places back at Road Atlanta. And with Yanni Simicic not being here today and Chris Shepherd actually getting disqualified from that qualifying session, so he's going to be starting towards the back, that really gives a big opportunity for the likes of Skovron or Dennehan to try and make some moves in this championship.
Oh yeah, for sure. Looking sort of in the YouTube chat, I didn't quite catch it. Edward Hunt is saying that Jake Dennehan is starting from 21st. So again, not entirely sure how accurate that is, if he was able to get the run or not, but we weren't able, unfortunately, to take a look at how they racked up after qualifying. But even if that is the case, on a day where Yanni Simicic isn't turning up, for Chris Shepherd and Jake Dennehan to be a little bit further down definitely isn't great. So I think Damien Skovron, of the 3 that are definitely up there in contention, up there, and I think it was sort of 7th place that he was able to qualify in the end. He's definitely in a really, really good spot.
He certainly is, and it's going to be a tough one, I think, actually, to make up positions around here, because while there's probably going to be some carnage, as you would expect on an oval, overtaking around here is possible, especially when there's a tyre difference. But in those first sort of 10 laps, when everyone's on the same fuel, everyone's on the same tyres, it might be quite difficult to make up a mass amount of positions. You may be able to get 1 or 2 drivers here, but I don't know if you're going to be able to jump up, 10, 15 positions in the course of the first couple of laps. That's really going to come down to, really come down to how the race plays out. And yeah, it's just cool seeing in the background here all the drivers there lined up in the garages waiting to go to the grid in a couple of moments' time. They must be pretty raring to go, because, of course, this is just such a different style of racing, and it's something that you really have to swap your head around compared to last week.
Oh yeah, it's a completely different mindset from sort of road racing to over racing. I've not done my extensive share of over racing, but I can definitely, from what I have done, I can tell you the switch is massive. It is, you completely have to change, because it's so easy to get complacent from being a road racer. It's like, I was the same. I was like, oh, I'm just turning in circles. What's going on here? It can't be that difficult. And then I do it, and I'm like, oh no, yeah, fair enough. I had to even turn down my force feedback a couple of clicks because of how sort of physical and some of the bumps were fighting the car going through. It is very, very tricky. It's a completely different discipline. I guess that's sort of why we're doing the Stock Car Cup series, because it is just, it's something that we don't often appreciate. Of course, we always are in the Formula cars throughout the year here in FSR. So to have this sort of breath of fresh air in some stock cars definitely is nice, very welcomed. And again, it shows who can definitely adapt quickest from sort of that Formula mindset straight into sort of the stock car mindset. And again, with the ovals, it is awesome to see, and definitely sort of, as we say, that uncertainty that does make it interesting.
And we're going to look out for certain drivers who maybe are those oval specialists. We already mentioned Fabian Ballet starting from that pole position, who had such a great run at Apple Valley last. But of course, I mentioned in qualifying as well, Victor Ivanov, he is a massive fan of this style of racing. And in our pre-season race, a few weeks ago, I believe he ended up coming out and winning on the oval on the part of the pre. So certainly drivers to look out for. But I think apart from that, I think it is pretty. I think it's pretty unpredictable what's going to happen. We've got a total of about 90 laps of racing between the two races. We'll have a reverse grid from the result of the sprint race. The top 8 to 12. At random, a random number between 8 and 12 will then be used to reverse those top finishing positions in the sprint race before we go to the feature. So that will also have a play into the fact of the driver who comes out on top in the sprint race will then have to start making overtakes once.
Yeah, and to come through the pack in a stock car race, it's not impossible, but it definitely is a little bit tricky because, positions are very sort of not set in stone. They're very impermanent. You go for a move and very quickly you might get overtaken, re-overtaken again. In a sense, it's sort of like cycling racing from the Olympics and things like that, where people are just using each other to try and slipstream away and working as a pack to sort of maintain the highest overall possible speed. Because as soon as you start, running side by side, sending moves and things like that, you are just hurting each other, because it's an oval. You can't send it into a corner more. You can't necessarily drive better to close a significant gap, that is. Obviously, for the marginal differences like we saw in qualifying, you can definitely make that difference. But in a sense, if you break away from the main pack, you are, unless there's a caution or anything like that, you are pretty much out of it.
You certainly are. But as we get the drivers coming to the grid, let's try and take a look at the final standings that we had for the grid, because of course it wasn't necessarily the grid in terms of the fastest lap. Here comes the starting order, of course. Safety car on pole position. We've got Fabian Ballet, Ryan Elliott and Victor Ivanov starting towards the front of the pack, which is cool to see all these different teams as well, not just one team dominating at the front. Then Cedar Vire for Zancho, then Arda Urchan for TX3 alongside Valente, and Michi Hoyer up there starting in that 8th position. We then get Damian Skovron, Andre van der Neet and Giannis Lianos for the top 12. Which is good to see. Once again, loads of teams up there on this 35-car grid. Borja Milan, followed by Jan Woznitzer, Liam Howard, and Carlos Martin. Carlos Martin there standing in for one of the Nerex drivers, and Patsidis, I believe it is. Then Prodan, Vlietstra, Costa, and Morville rounding out the top 20. And I think we'll have to jump into the grid very shortly. There's Munier, Lalu, Denahan, your championship leader, and then Gijs Sonneveld coming towards back of the grid. But let's go to the grid. It's a very short formation lap, of course. Fabian Ballet coming around the final couple of corners, and he will then be ready to take on this grid. He'll be leading the drivers, and once he gets into that start location, which is just out of turn 4, he'll be able to call accelerate, and then we'll be calling green flag for the first oval race of the Stock Car Pro Cup Championship. And there goes green. All of the drivers running their way down towards turn number 1. It's massively side by side, a little bit further back in the background. Fabian Ballet leading the way though in towards turn number 1. Victor Ivanov there up into 2nd place. Ryan Elliott dropping down a few places in the background, as there's been a couple of cars, I think, just having some sliding there towards the background. And it looks like they're coming towards turn 3 now, but it seems to be fairly clean, Zach.
fairly clean, especially for Fabian Barley. He has had a comfortable start from pole position. Unfortunate for our second place man of Ryan Elliott, who has really tumbled through the order. That is not the best of starts. Down to P5, but Victor Ivanov is not going to be complaining. Same too with Via up to P3. Now the case of just settling in. You can see there 2 wide, maybe even 3 wide, just in the background. I think between Andre Hoyer and Damien Skovron, they are going to try and run. Oh, there's a car off there going off the 56. Not entirely sure as to who that is, but not the best ways to come out of the exit of turn 2 by any stretch of the imagination. But now's the case of just trying to settle in, find your pack, and obviously pick your line and commit to it.
Absolutely, that was one of the visceral cars there. Might have been Darius Andre actually dropping down a little bit, but as we come towards the start of the next lap, the drivers of course are trying to just spread themselves out, get a bit of a run, as we're seeing there. A little bit of Arda Urchan there having a little look down towards Celia Via down the inside of turn 1, and we just want to apologise for the slightly slow-mo graphics you're getting at the moment. We'll see if we can get that one sorted out in the meantime, but the drivers still having some nice side-by-side battles with Via here on the outside of turn number 4, trying to get the run. He'll get the steps, although there's Mitchy Hoyer who's gone around, and we get the first caution of the day, and that was not a good rejoin from Hoyer, taking out Jan Vosnitzer, I believe that was as well.
That sucks already with the caution, and again that just goes to show how quickly things can change. It was very, very unfortunate for Mitchy Hoyer. I think it was Harvig, I think going a little bit sideways, but again we'll have to take another look at that one very quick, how the sort of the tables can turn, but still for our top 4, they're still not complaining by any means. But it is a shame for Mitchy Hoyer because he has really struggled to get this season properly underway. The pit lane is close, so no one's going to be darting themselves in. But yeah, already a caution, and you can definitely start to get the inkling that is probably going to be sort of the tail of the whole race.
Absolutely, and what we'll do while this caution is out, I'll just quickly try and sort out the visual side out. But for sure, that was possibly earlier than we thought we were going to get the caution, Zach. But I think that was definitely inevitable that it would come out in the earlier stages of the.
It is most likely to happen in the early stages. Of course, everyone's still very, very bunched up. Things are happening. You're trying to sort of go for moves and make yourself up a little bit early before things start to spread out and settle down. So you sort of have to understand it. But also with that,
it is now open for
by that logic
cars.
Are going to sort of breed cautions because everyone is bunched up at the start. They crash, it brings out a caution. Caution bunches everyone up. They're bunched up at the start. It crashes, brings out a caution. So you really, really do have to be careful. But we're now getting word in the area that the pit lane is open. So if anyone does want to come in, which I doubt they do, because losing track position, especially in only a 21 lap race, definitely not going to be great. But maybe if you're towards the back, you're not got nothing to lose. I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely I think everyone's just going to try and maintain that track position.
Yeah, I think the track position is actually going to be more key than you might expect around this track, purely because of the amount of drivers as well that are on the grid. If it was maybe a 10 to 20 car field, you would back yourself to pit and then try and overtake them. But when there's 30 plus cars there, that's a lot of cars to start coming back through. And at this time, there isn't really enough difference in the tires, difference in the fuel for that really to make a big difference. So yeah, it's certainly something that the drivers are going to need to that they're going to need to think about when we get a little bit further into the race as well. When those tires start wearing, at what point does it actually make sense to come in?
We will
and
continue racing at the end of this lap. We will go green at the end of this lap. We'll do single file restart.
Drivers, grid up.
As the drivers come down, we will just try and get the pictures back for you as soon as possible, of course. And it's obviously priority for us to do so. Just making sure that when we do restart, there isn't any lagging pictures. But for sure, that is certainly going to be an important one to come back to this green flag, Zach, because obviously Fane Ballet leading at the front. He will have to try and do sort of the best way of trying to keep that lead.
Oh, for sure. And I think we are getting word that we are back to green flag. So we will cut back to the live picture as soon as possible. But yeah, it's, Barley got off to a really, really good initial start. Again, just has to do it. But you might say he got a bit lucky or whatever to get a clean start. That luck might not stay with him for the entirety of the evening. But again, only time definitely will tell. He definitely does seem to be so composed and sort of not letting that pressure get to him. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get a good launch. He knows how to maintain a lead. And that definitely is going to be a skill that he can utilize to full effect.
Yeah, they certainly can. And I think for this beginning part of a race, it's certainly one where you potentially want to take a few less risks potentially in your battles with the cars around you. You definitely want to you definitely want that they're in those reverse grid places. But if you are a driver a bit further back, you might want to take a few more risks to try and get towards the front.
You definitely have a lot less to lose in that sense. You're starting towards the back anyway. You might as well come in with a bit of aggression, but especially for those towards the front, those that are definitely fighting for the sort of the championship towards the late part of this very, very short season, you would expect them to sort of be a little bit more cautious because they have a lot more to lose. They have to stay consistent. They can't, win one race, go into the next one, completely send it, bottle it, spin, crash, finish P20, because that's not how you win championships. You finish championships by sacrificing wins maybe to someone who's slightly out of your depth just a little bit, just saying, okay, I'm all right with P2 because it's still a decent amount of points. I'm still finishing ahead of X, Y, and Z and still being able to score a decent amount of points. You win championships by being consistent. Yes, winning helps for sure, but it's not the do or die at the end of the day. If you can sort of just maximize your points or and remain consistent, that is for sure going to be the better option than just sending it in and putting yourself and others at risk.
Absolutely, it's a difficult position to be in for these drivers. They want to be able to push, but as you say, you've got to have that sort of element of caution in your brain to try and not allow yourself to get overworked at a situation. Say there's a fight and it's getting a little bit aggressive. You might then want to dive down the inside, but especially on a track like this, if you dive down the inside, you then just understeer up the track on the exit and can cause a big pile-up. So you've got to have that level of composure, which is a little bit difficult when you're racing against 30 drivers. And Zach, yourself, if you're in that sort of position, would you be the sort of aggressor, or would you be the one who's sort of been that little bit more cautious and trying to get to the end of the race?
You're putting a lot of pressure on me here. But I mean, it's a compromise, isn't it? It's a balancing act. It's sort of be aggressive, but don't be stupid. You have to sort of weigh it up. You don't want to sort of languish around and sort of just twiddle your thumbs and tap your feet or whatever, waiting at the back, because you're not going to make any progress forward. You do have to go in with sort of some element of aggression. You have to fight your way through. You have to get to the front to give yourself those opportunities to maximize your points, to remain consistent. So it's like be aggressive, but don't be aggressive. It's very backwards. It's a big sort of what's the word, contradiction over yourself. But I mean, I'd go in sort of half conservative because I know full well I'm not good enough to win. But if I'm going to make it fun, I'm going to go for some moves. I'm going to try and be as annoying as possible and try and gain as many places as possible. And here we are back to the live action then, lap 15 of 21. And it is now Erkan that leads the way. What happened to Fabian Barley? He's now down to P5. You can see there just behind Martin. And Viktor Ivanov has had a pretty good run there. He's up in a second place and practically pushing Erkan through. He definitely looks feisty, definitely looks like he wants to get into the mix.
He certainly does, as Ballet's obviously had a little issue there, as you mentioned, dropping down to 5th place, but that's still a nice one to be in. Viktor Ivanov just following here in 2nd place. As you get the pictures back, but there's Valente actually in that 3rd place, trying to get up the inside of Viktor Ivanov. By now, we're on coming up towards lap 17, so already a few laps to go in this race, and it's getting to that point where the tyres will be that little bit more worn down as we come through this first couple of corners. This is potentially the important point to get the run onto the back straight and then a dive into turn 3.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to maximize the slipstream, but again, it's difficult to pull out because you just get hit by a complete wash of air, and it's just like a brick wall. You're gaining so much. As soon as you pull out, bam, you've got some drag, and very, very difficult to make up that difference, because now Via looking to the outside, he's now got the slipstream. You can see the difference because Vlightstraight is forced to sort of concede. Here comes Lianos looking to the left-hand side. That is going to be Brave. Had a bit of a look, almost tapped around. Here comes Milan to the outside line. Oh my word, 3 wide going through. How have they not made contact? Oh, they have. Sideways. Oh, a car sideways as well in the background. Not entirely sure as to who that is. That might be Jake Denahan. It is indeed, down in 15th place. Oh my word, how have they kept all those cars pointing the right way?
And that could be a big, obviously, championship implications for Denahan. These are the races where he needs to get those extra points on the drivers around him. Obviously had a bit of a bad qualifying session. Lalu here coming towards the inside of Lianos, as we're already on to lap 19 of 21 racing laps around here. As Lalu now to the outside, trying to get a run through turn 2. You see the driver just slide up on the exit with a bit of wheel spin. That can happen, but it actually looks like a bit ahead. Vlita is now having to defend from Borja Milan, who's making moves as we're getting towards the final couple of laps of this race. The number 3 car going up to the inside of the number 33 as Wanaka there jumps up into 9th place.
Beautiful stuff from Borja Milan, side by side just in front of them between Prodan and Via. The Zancho driver trying to make amends for what has been a pretty poor start. Looking to the inside of turn 1 and 2. He's going to go for it, but the 29 going to go the long way around. Prodan really wants to hang on to this 7th place. 2 by 2, I think a few rows deep, just in behind them as well. And Prodan with a better launch off of the exit of turn 2 has meant that Via really can't do much. And he's just having a bit of a look trying to put him off. But here's the fight for the lead. Fabian Barley in 4th place. Erkan with a fairly sizable lead to about half a second. He's branching away bit by bit, and those crucial car links now coming on to the final lap of the race. You have to say, if Erkan can keep it clean, it's his race to lose.
It certainly is, as Victor Ivanov had a bit of an issue when we were off camera, because Ballet's got ahead of him as Victor drops down to 5th place there, by coming already onto the final lap. The final couple of corners coming up. Is there going to be a big dive here from Ballet down the inside of turn 3? Victor Ivanov trying to go round the outside of the pair of them as Carlos Martin is involved here. Erkan though, round the final corner. There's contact though in the final corner. 3 cars into the wall. Victor Ivanov involved, Carlos Martin involved. The 2 burst cars managed to get through as well. Erkan takes the lead, and all these drivers trying to butterfly out, and somehow the TX3 driver managed to avoid all that contact behind Skovron in the end for burst, getting up into 3rd.
Skovron, what a race. I don't know what to say. That could have been so good. 3 wide on the last lap, but unfortunately for Fabian Barley, for our pole sitter, that is a big shame. It happened so quickly. It was the smallest of snaps, and all of them just completely ran into the barrier. It was Martin trying to go all the way around the outside, which fair enough. You've got to go for those moves, but yeah, on the last lap, these things happen. We see it time and time again when we look at sort of not so highlights when it comes to sort of stock car and oval racing. Things definitely do kick off on those final laps, but you can see it already a bit argy-bargy, lost the momentum, and that it definitely invited Martin to go the long way around. But what a race so far. That was a lot of action, definitely to try and sort of dissect.
I'm just trying to see if we can get a replay here of that finish, but it was definitely a difficult one to do. So for some reason, we seem to be getting the wrong drivers when we click on them. But that is a shame, because that was a massive accident towards the end. And of course, that is something that we don't really want to see. Unfortunately, the replay doesn't seem to be working. We'll try and sort that one out for the next one. But that, of course, is going to be already the finish of that first race today. We have got that sprint race. The sprint race that has come to a conclusion. Erkan there managing to get the finished result, and I have to see if I can restart the overlay on this one, because sometimes the results aren't working either. But what a finish, Zach, that was, because that just shows you how much these drivers have to push at the end to try and make it work.
You've got to go for it. And it's those small things again that make the difference on that last lap. It's do or die. You know, it's either do you want to finish fourth or do you want to finish 3rd? And it's that thing, you have to just completely send it, because it's the last lap. It's a short lap. These laps tick by so quick, and you spent a good majority of the race sat behind waiting for an opportunity. If an opportunity arises, you have to take it, because you're a racing driver. You want to do as well as possible. Of course, not saying that Victor Ivanov going for the move for the lead when he's 5 tenths back. That's not what I mean. But if you're tucked up behind someone and you can have a look into turn 3 or into turn 4, you might as well. And when it's 3 wide, those things are bound to happen. It is a shame that it happened, but what do you expect? Their stock cars averaging 145 miles an hour throughout the race on their absolute limit on the final lap, where their tires are at their worst throughout the entirety of that 21 lap race. You can cut them a bit of slack.
Yeah, you certainly can, and that was the perfect example there, actually. So you had the TX2 car there on the inside, and what with Ballet, and what basically happened was the cars on the outside turned into, so he's turning left, but the cars are putting pressure because they're turning into his rear right. So that's turning the car also right. So even though he was turning left, obviously it would just push the car around, and then there was a big contact. And unfortunately, in the end, Mitch Hoy ended up getting caught up, and loads of other drivers getting caught up, Carlos Martin as well, which is obviously not the way that we want to see that first sprint race, but hopefully we get a nicer run into this 67 lap feature race that is coming your way. So what is going to happen now, there is going to be a reverse grid. So between the number of 8 and 12, a random number will be chosen, and that will then be reversed from the finishing result of that sprint race, and we will get into course the all-important feature race. There's points for the sprint, but there's also even more points for
You'd hope so. It's 3 times the length, so you've got to award a couple more points. But yeah, reverse grid, it could be P8 that starts pole, it could be P9 that starts pole, it could be P10, 11 or 12 that starts pole. It is a guessing game, and it just means that you sort of go into the sprint race not really knowing so much as to what happened. But here's how they ranked up after sprint race 1, and you have to say, after qualifying, this is a pretty surprising result sheet.
Yeah, so we saw that Erkan there getting that lead, that victory, I should say, from Valente, and Skovron getting up into 3rd place. That's done his championship some good, being 4th place. Carlos Martin ended up getting 4th after being spun around in that instant at the end of the race. Prodan there getting 5th, Cito Vaya and Borja Milan, who we saw making moves towards the end of that race. Then Loic Meunier and Fabian Ballet ending up in 9th place, and Vlietstra rounding out the top 10. Then on to the next page, we had Lianos, then Howard. So Howard is the last person who can potentially get that reverse grid. We'll see when the grid gets set and what number has randomly been chosen. Got Muzidis there, also there for 13th place. Jake Denhan in 14th. And then we get to Lalu, Zux, Vandenit, Vosnitsa, Morville and Riboli rounding out the top 20. Obviously, all these drivers here just so close together, still on the lead lap. Sunovel, Tucson, Pinataris, Shepard, Vac, Mancini, Rainey, Ivanov ending up in P28. That's a shame for him, battling in that top 5. Then Mazunda and Ryan Elliott in 30th place. Elliott must have had a couple of issues after starting so high up. Costa, Hoyer, Smith, Shneka and Savilev there rounding out the top 35 before Harvick a couple of laps down. Then Andre was your final finishing position there with Anthony Nitzbon driving the safety car. So I think that was definitely a good feel for how Gateway is going to treat us, Zach. But of course, more laps, 3 times the length and a little bit more for this one. So the drivers maybe need to approach it slightly differently.
You do. In the sprint race, it's sort of just go out there. You don't need to change tires. You don't need to worry about fuel. Just completely hammer the car and put it to its limit. But now you sort of got to conserve it a little bit. Maybe you don't go for that move 5 laps in. Maybe you just sit behind, save a bit of fuel, shorten your pit stop, because that is going to be the difference. If you can shave off half a second in the pit stop and gain that track position, get a little bit clear of some of the slipstream, or get back onto the pack of some people in front, that's going to be a huge gain. Versus sort of everyone else. So sitting back, save some fuel, and sort of use everyone else around you to your advantage. Sort of just sit back and say, okay, this fight can wait until the later part of the race. Right now, I'm focusing on myself, and I'm trying to make sure that pit strategy goes as well as it can.
Absolutely, and we've just been told that it's the top 10 that have been reversed. It's going to be Vlietstra on pole position. An academy driver for independent team will be started on pole. Fabian Ballet will go back to the front in 2nd place, of course, losing out on some points there, but at least goes back to the front with Loic Meunier and Borja Milan getting on that 2nd row. So I think, Zach, that was some good moves from, for instance, Borja Milan at the end of that race. He got up a couple of positions, so he got an extra few points for that race, but then he also starts high in 4th place here. So I think definitely Borja Milan is a good one to look out for potentially coming into this feature race.
Yeah, I mean, we said that about Fabian Barley, didn't we? We said that he was going to be dominant. He's the overall maestro, and started from pole, looked really good. Then we cut back to live action. We're like, oh, hang about. Where's Barley? He's P5, and then by the end of it, he finished in P9. But now he's up there on the front row. So definitely one to look out for. But that same misfortune that he carried the ball and chain around his ankles in race 1 can definitely still affect him in race 2. He just has to hope that he can get away cleanly and use that pace to full effect. Get away from the likes of Borja Milan. Get away from sort of the quicker likes of Erkan, who won in race 1, and just hope that he can try and maintain that lead at the front, or even second place. Not entirely sure. Maybe Vlietstra is going to pull an absolute worldie and hang on to P1. It's that's the surprise that you get from reverse grid sometimes, but we'll have to wait and see. I would say Barley is probably maybe one of the favourites, but again, we don't know.
We definitely don't. And unfortunately, we missed how Ballet went back there in that race, because, of course, he was leading when the pictures went away. We lost that sort of middle 10 laps of the race, unfortunately. But when we came back, he'd obviously dropped down from that position. So there's definitely some battles, and you could see there, once the drivers start battling and they start to get 2-3 wide, everything can happen. And that is great to see. We already saw... was that 2 cautions, I think, in that race as well. So definitely a point to think about. No mandatory stops were to be had in the sprint race, but there is at least 1 mandatory stop to be had in the feature race. But also they will have to stop because they won't be able to get there with enough fuel. So the strategists now need to work out what they're going to do and how they're going to get their drivers towards the front.
It's going to be very tricky. But that's the thing, though, is that you can do as many practice laps as you want. You can go around and round and round and round and sort of nail the optimal strategy on paper. That is assuming it's going to be green for the whole race, which chances are it's not. 67 laps around here, the grid that we've got, the chaos that we saw in the sprint race, chances are it's not going to stay green all throughout, but you can't predict when chaos is going to strike. You can't predict when a caution is going to go out. You can't predict how many there's going to be. So you do definitely have to think on your feet. You have to be like, okay, this is the strategy we're going to go in with. This is the strategy we're going to hope. But you've also got to have sort of some allowances. You've got to say, okay, if it comes out within this window, then we can do this. If it comes out between this window, then we can do this. Because if you don't and you're caught out by surprise, you have to think on your feet. And as soon as you think on your feet, definitely the chances of you making a drastic mistake have skyrocketed. And really been exaggerated. So it's the strategy element of things, the sort of the caution element and all that for sure is going to be sort of something that's going to be looming over everyone's heads.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll get the safety car start once again. We'll get a 2x2 start down towards turn 1 and 2, which is the tighter of the corners here at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. If the Gateway 150, and it's quite an important part of the track, is that turn number 1 and 2 being the tight one. You generally have to brake a lot more into that couple of corners. And we certainly saw that one being the one where we saw Borja Milan, going 3 wide around the outside as well. So I do expect that one to be a little bit more influential in terms of the race results coming out. But of course, the safety cars as well, they're going to come into a factor. So I really think the person to come out on top in this race is the one who's that sort of 95% driver. So they're still fast, but they have that extra few percent restrained, and can get towards the front of the grid and making those moves. But I think that the tyre wear is probably the bigger factor in this race. And I think the people who are trying those bold moves around the outside might come to regret it if they start over pushing that.
You might, it's easy to say, it's only one move around the outside. What harm is it going to do? But, even that is going to wear your tyres out a little bit more. You're having to put a lot of load into the tyre, especially the right-hand side ones. Even your inside ones have a bit more distance to travel now. You're on sort of the slightly dirtier side of the circuit. It's so much more demanding for the tyres. And when you sort of put that abrasive action on them, that friction, they are just going to wear even more. You're putting a lot more load into them. They're going to heat up a lot more as well. So you've got to be a little bit more sensible. You've got to think a lot more carefully about your moves, where and when you do them. And being on the outside really isn't going to be the most beneficial thing in the world. But those that are going to be smooth, those that sort of don't turn in 50 different times into the corner. Those that sort of pick their point, turn, get it, point in the right way and then hold it are going to be so much better off, because in the long run, yes, it might be maybe a little bit slower or whatever. If they can shave off, say half a mile an hour average lap or whatever, just a little bit slower, but maintain their tires, they're going to really thank themselves in the later stage of the races where they're just that much quicker because of the better tires.
Absolutely. And here comes the grid for the feature race. Vlietstra leading the way from Fabien Ballet and Luc Meunier on that second row of the grid, with, of course, Anthony Nitzbon driving that safety car at the front of the field. Borja Milan followed by Cyril Vaya, Donat Prodan and Carlos Martin for Networks Grand Prix down there in 8th position. Of course, we only have time to run through the top few positions, but Scott Von Valente, Erchan there in 11th, and Giannos Lianos rounding out to the top 12
drivers
for Netrex Grand Prix. And we'll jump already into the race session as we try and see what these drivers are going to do now coming towards the front of this feature race. We've got an academy driver here. You see the dot next to his name, and we are certainly going to see what that is going to as come through turn 3 and 4, and let's see how they do. ETCG leading the way out of the final couple of corners. Fabien Ballet alongside him. Who's going to get the run as we get towards turn number 1? They're still going, they're still going, but no, now they go green. Quite a late call there, and they will now have to see how this one is going to go. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of Somo again, so we'll have to see how this one continues coming towards these first couple of corners of this lap. It seems that Vlietstra is already leading the way nicely there. Fabien Ballet dropping into that second position, holding on for now.
Decent start for Vlietstra, and can sort of compose himself really well. We've got Fabien Ballet, who's started from second, is still in second. Everyone now getting into some single file. You have to pick your line. You have to just settle into it. You don't want to be caught out by choosing the wrong one. And now Borja Milan in 4th place, just trying to stay onto the back of this train for what is the top 3 places, because again, you cannot afford to lose that slipstream by any means. It's a long race, and you do not want to be out of the slipstream so early on.
Yeah, you certainly don't. It's going to be a difficult one to keep on top of for these drivers as well. Let's try and see how that one goes for these guys as they come towards the turn number 1 and 2 for another time. Vlietstra still leading the way there. We've got Fabien Ballet, though, coming up the inside to get a bit of a run down the back straight away. Vlietstra there having to defend on the outside. That's certainly going to be difficult to do so as Ballet has the better line. We've got Luc Meunier coming down the outside now, trying to do something in that number 2 car. But the number 3 at Borja Milan starts to come down the outside. We're almost going 3 wide. Bit of contact between the two. Vlietstra manages to hold on, but I think Meunier now coming down for second place.
Here comes Meunier, and you can see that Vlietstra going to the left-hand side, trying to sort of spread the slipstream that he's given. But there's Meunier round the outside, up into second place now, and having a bit of a look, maybe going to eye up the race lead. There's Borja Milan looking to the outside of Fabien Ballet, who's really been caught off, going to get squeezed to the wall now, going to pull to the left-hand side, but cannot afford to because of that draft train. Here comes Fabien Ballet back up to the inside of turn 3 for second place. That is going to be very tight indeed. Meunier says no to that one. Now forced to the outside line, 2 wide, 2 rows deep, because now Borja Milan wants to get involved on the outside of Fabien Ballet, and as we close off another lap, somehow Vlietstra still leads.
He certainly does. We got Vaya trying to get involved here as well. 2 by 2 in towards turn number 1 and 2. Borja Milan all the way around the outside. Can they get the better run though? 3 wide on the exit. Looks like Meunier is going to be getting to the lead. Bit of contact 3 wide again as Borja Milan now tries to come towards second place. Ballet losing a couple of places here and there. Vlietstra is still just about holding on. There's a bit of contact as Cedar Vaya goes wide, and Carlos Martin now coming up towards the top 5.
So many cars and such little space. Couple of wall taps. Oh, big crash there. There's Vaya off, and I think he's brought someone with him, the 82. Erchan now goes through. That is Valente. Oh, my word. That is such a shame. Oh, my word. Even bigger crash, and as we're hearing in our ears, very big crash, and definitely a caution. That is, that's gutting for Valente. Yeah, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Huge crash, and how did that happen? You can see dragging him there across, and then it just turned into something even bigger.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see exactly with Silva. I've got to try and get a little bit further back from this view. And it's already actually from this view. It looks like he bounced off the wall, made contact with Valente, and then at that point, there's nothing really much Vi can do apart from slow down. But unfortunately, it was a car coming a little bit further back who unfortunately got collected with that one. But that just shows you, Zach, how easy it is to make a mistake around here.
These cars are so sensitive. They're going, 140, 150 miles an hour, and they've got, little to no aerodynamic grip. They, as soon as you make the slightest adjustment, these cars on these setups, they're not designed to turn at quick speeds. They're designed to go around the bankings and negotiate the oval. They're not meant to quickly dart to the left or dart to the right or whatever it is. And if you demand that of them, the rear end is just going to say no. And straight away, it's so difficult. The brakes aren't that good either. These cars are designed for speed, not to slam on the anchors. So those behind don't have much time to react whatsoever. They can't really do much in that, and you really are just a passenger. You just have to floor it and hope, and no one's expecting you to do a Lightning McQueen and jump off the back of a car and soar over the top or anything like that, because that's just ridiculous. But it's just, it is literally just close your eyes and pray sometimes, because with the amount of cars going on, with how big some crashes are, that's all you really can do.
Yeah, and let's have a look. Silvia has unfortunately DNF from the race. He's back in the garage. Valente is coming out after his damage repairs. So even though he lost a wheel, he managed to get back to the pit lane. So fair play. He joins the back of the field, but he's going to be a couple of laps down by that point. Adam Rainey for TX3 reserving today. He is also a lap down as well with
the rest stay on the low line.
Yeah, and it sounds like
everybody
the lap cars.
On the low line. Lap cars may unlap themselves on the high line.
Yes, it sounds like the lap cars are able to get their lap back, which is a nice one, because it's still fairly early on the race, as you see them coming around here. We've also got Mancini here, 29th place. He's leading those drivers who are getting given a lap back, which is rather nice there of race direction. And that means we'll probably, once these guys catch up, we'll probably get another lap. Then we'll be going back to green. So, Zach, certainly this is exactly why you've got to keep in the race, because even if you go a lap down, you might get your lap back, then you'll never know what can happen in the remaining 50-odd laps.
Oh, for sure. You know, the only way you're completely out of it is if you're like 3-4 laps down. Then it's sort of like, okay, this is a bit hopeless. But if you're only 1 lap down, boom, caution, boom, you've got your lap back. You're at the back of the train. Oh, sweet, 5, 6, 7 cars have crashed in front of you. Sweet, another caution. And then you slowly pick your way through. As long as you can keep your nose clean, you're not out of it by any means. You know, you really can stay in the mix and, you know, stay in the fight all the way through. If you've got the pace, if you've got the determination, and you don't constantly get yourself into the
next lap.
If you don't continuously get yourself into those trouble, we're going green at the end of the next lap. So gives the lap cars a nice time to settle to the back of the train. But
at the end of this lap,
not at all
after you cross the line,
out of it by any means, because it's still a long race to go.
Certainly is, and you see Anthony here calling the drivers to grid up. As ever, the restarts being a single file formation, and it's now Luc Meunier for Team Iris to try and lead the way and try and get a bit of a run on these drivers as we come around turn 3 and 4. The number 2 machine, followed by the number 3, will be trying to get a bit of a gap to these guys behind as we try and open up the field once again. Around the final corner, here comes Luc Meunier to restart the race. Lap 11 about to commence as the drivers go racing once again at the Gateway 150. Green flag is called, and in the background we're already getting is that Prodan trying to make some moves. He's got Carlos Martin just up ahead of him, but he's also got the number 48 car there on the inside, but actually all the way around the outside. He's going to try to go the long way round on Carlos Martin as they go almost 3 wide on the exit with Vlietstra there in the middle trying to defend from these guys, and it looks like Carlos Martin has lost a couple of places as Erchan is trying to get around the outside as well, coming through turn 3.
Oh my word, Erchan really making some good ground after starting from 10th place on this grid. He is really flying through the field. Now looking to the left-hand side. Has he got the momentum? Has he got the slingshot? But you can just see there Musadis to the outside with that draft is going to soar his way around the outside up into 7th place. And that is beautifully done, though. Taking the high side is definitely going to wear his tyres just a little bit more. Erchan had nothing to say to that one, just in front of them as well. Carlos Martin, I think, or Prodon on the inside of Vlietstra to the inside of turn 3. There goes Musadis on Carlos Martin. He's trying to make his way up side by side between the Netrex and Valet driver. And Musadis, he saw this opportunity. He's grabbed it with both hands.
He certainly has. He's now got the slipstream of Prodan as well. It is fairly big around this car. We do have a car off, though, at the back. A red car has stopped. I think that might be Matthias Harvig at the back. He's had a bit of an issue as we're still side-by-side too deep. Coming through turn 1 and 2. Carlos Martin hanging it around the outside there as these guys still manage to stay side-by-side, just showing you that potentially both lines can work, though, as they have to feel far back into single file, though. Prodan is trying to make his move. This is, of course, for the top 5 places. The top 3 starting to get away nicely, but they're causing a little bit of a pack behind as they're starting to bump off the wall.
Yeah, indeed. This is definitely helping the likes of Loic Mounier, Borja Milan and Fabian Barley. The top 3 here comes Damien Scott-Vron trying to make some ground. There goes Jukka-Pekka Lalu to the outside. Oh, someone's round. Is that Slot Zhuch? I think so. Danny Vanderley might have collected him. Oh, my words. Everyone sideways. That is big. No one, I think, in the barrier just yet, but certainly sideways. I think actually Zhuch has been able to avoid that one to full effect. But again, the smallest of things can really, really unsettle these cars.
They certainly can. We're going side-by-side down the main straight now. Lalu on the outside, Damien Scott-Vron on the inside. And it looks like Lalu's just going to be able to hold on to that one around the outside there. Interesting to see so many drivers actually coming around the low line as we're getting a driver there of Harvick coming back out after his incident we saw a lap or 2 ago. But yeah, it certainly seems like the inside line seems to be the way to defend around here. But just how will that affect the tyres being on the tighter radius as we get through the stint?
Yeah, again, you have to pick a line and sort of commit to it. Oh, who's that? Oh my God, is that Erchan? Or maybe it is. Oh my word, he's managed to continue on. Maybe some slight damage, but that really caught out the likes, I think, of Lalu and Scott-Vron and everyone just in front of him. I think all the way up to maybe Jan Wawrzyniecka. But Erchan really falling backwards now. He's completely killed his momentum and fallen back behind Jake Dennehan, who's made some really good progress between the both pair of the races. He didn't benefit off the reverse grid and started from what was 21st at the start of the sprint race, now up to now P11. So do not count out Dennehan whatsoever.
You certainly cannot. Making up position after position as Carlos Martin still battling here with Mazidis for Valley Esports going all the way around the outside. Got Lianos just behind, but Carlos Martin just going to come back up there to the race line to block that one off and to defend as the yellow car is having to defend. As there's obviously been a crash a little bit further back as we're getting a caution. Let's see if we can have a look. Yeah, cars off in the background. One of the Wanako cars there of Chris Shepherd has gone around at the back, causing another caution, and he's got big damage there on that car.
Ooh, that does not look pretty. Oh, I would not want to be driving that car at all. He is sliding all over the place. He will crawl his way back to the pit lane. Fortunately, it's not quite as big of a crash as it was. He's actually not coming into the pit lane, so bit strange. Maybe it's not that big. We're going to take a look as to what happened for the Wanako driver, and maybe just collected in someone else's incident. Yeah, he was. I think they both managed to get through it, but just understeer into the slide, into the side of the car in front, and then that, of course, sort of slightly threw him off just a bit. I don't think it was Chris Shepherd necessarily that caused the caution in of itself. Maybe the other car that he had to avoid, but definitely not ideal for the man that came into this round third in the championship.
Absolutely, that's not what you want. We jumped to Loic Mounier at the front there. I do apologize about the lag in replay. Seems to be fine on live, but we'll try and avoid the replays for that where possible. But yeah, it looked like Victor Ivanov had already had a bit of a spin, had potentially some contact in the midfield there. And unfortunately, there was no place to go for Chris Shepherd as Shepherd now comes into the pit lane for his damage repairs. And he will have to try and come back out and try and salvage something.
Pits are now open for lead lap cars.
As the pits are now open, and the drivers will be choosing to come in. And here comes Victor Ivanov back into the mix to see what he can do.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, he did quite a decent job in the sprint race. Didn't quite get the result that he particularly would have wanted, but yeah, not at all. Interestingly enough, no one deciding to come into the pit lane, at least from the sort of the top group of Loic Mounier, Borja Milan, Fabian Barley, Vlietstra or Prodan or Jan Wawrzyniecka, any of them deciding to come in, or someone in. Jukka-Pekka Lalu's sort of biting the bullet, coming in. So whether he'll just take fuel, take tyres, probably you would assume if he's coming in for fuel, he might as well take tyres. In fact, a big group amongst the midfield coming in. So this could be quite interesting. They're not, no, they're not going to get to the end on this tank of fuel, but definitely banking on the fact there's going to be another caution at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. If there's some caution periods, they might actually just be able to get to the end. It's about 40 laps or so, sort of on your own, but with the likes of Slipstream, with cautions, it will be obviously possible to go a little bit longer. So potentially they might be. The issue is their tyres are going to be absolutely done by the end of the race. So that is definitely something to take into account, as Adam Rainey is also in, as Savilev, as well as Harry Smith was also in there, who's at Roberto Pignataro, and Thomas Ravak as well, all coming into the pit lane. And hopefully you'll be able to see on the tower as well the number of laps that people have done on their tyres since their last pit stop, to try and work out exactly. We'll try our best to work out the tyre strategies. But yeah, for sure, these guys are going to struggle to get to the end. But if they really try, it might be possible.
They might be able to do sort of short bursts, you know, come in, lose a couple of places, use their fresh tyres, blitz, fall a couple of places, caution comes out, they come in again, put some fresh tyres on, go out again. But again, that's banking on there being cautions. It's a fair assumption to make, because already on lap 21 we've had 2. So sort of following the same frequency as the sprint race, which had this, I think, 2 cautions in the same span. But yeah, still, you know, you're going to safely assume there's going to be a couple more cautions, so you can sort of afford these earlier pit stops if it benefits you in the long run. But Lalu already down to
Lap cars may unlap
P26,
themselves now.
but
Lap cars may
they are
unlap
getting that lap
themselves
back
now
again.
on the high
So
line.
again, very kind from
Everyone
race
else,
direction
please stay
to
on the
let
low
them have
line.
it.
Yeah, it looks like Matthias Harvig there for Racing Room. Going around the outside, this is an interesting. What was that? I'm trying to work out who that was coming. One of the Netrex cars, is that Carlos Martin, coming, because he came in last lap. Now he's coming again as the 2 bursts of Skovron and Hoyer coming as well. Martin came in last lap. Did he get a speeding penalty? Is this why he's coming in? I wonder why. But sometimes, obviously, when it's a situation like this, you're in a safety car. If you're already at the back, you can come through pit lane and then top up again, if that makes sense, because you're obviously getting some laps. And yeah, I believe that is. But Carlos Martin now is going a lap down with that. But I believe he would also be able to get his lap back if that is. Actually, no, he's not. He's come back in on the lead lap.
Oh, okay. That's still on the lead lap, so not bad. But yeah, again, with it being such a short lap, if you come into the pit lane, chances are you are probably going to maybe even, you know, get close to losing a lap just by being in the pit lane. So for the likes of Lalu and things like that, they don't want to be a lap down. But to take the pit stop under caution, it means that when like Moynier or Borja Milan come in, if they have to do it under green, it's going to be bad. But also, that's the thing, is how long do people stretch their stints hoping for a caution, because they don't at all want to take that penalty of having to come into the pit lane on a green.
Yeah, absolutely, as Harvig goes around here. But you're right, the green flag pit stop literally
at the end of this lap. We go green at the end of this lap.
Loses you a lap if you're a green flag pit stop. It's almost exactly a lap. It's a few seconds longer than lap, as Harvig here is getting out the way of the drivers. So we'll go back to the front, see Loic Mounier do a second restart. And once again, it is Borja Milan behind him. The number 2 and number 3 machines leading the way here. 23 laps into 66, so already creeping up towards half distance. Such is the short nature of this lap at just over 30 seconds. And now Mounier round the final corner. He can choose when they get to the straight section, when they go green. It looks like he has gone. And let's see, is anyone going to get a run in the background? Maybe Vlietstra there trying to get a run 3 wide as we get towards the top 5 here. Fabian Ballet holding it on the inside, but it's Prodan to go all the way around the outside for Visceral eSports. Can they hold it with that action? Oh, Vlietstra having a massive slide there. Gets the bad run as we get towards the back straightaway. Fabian Ballet trying to defend, but actually getting one of the Netrex cars there, Jan Voznitsa, in the background, getting up towards the top 5 as Fabian Ballet now trying to defend on the inside, as Prodan's had a great restart here.
Prodan really getting the ball running quickly. He's now to the outside trying to make it for third place. He's getting a bit of maybe some bunt draft in from the likes of Jan Voznitsa just in behind. They're going to freight train their way through. Fabian Barley going to lose a couple of places. There's also Stavros Muzeidis trying to the inside of Vlietstra. It's going to be very, very close for comfort. All of them sort of slightly sliding their way through, but a perfect restart there from Prodan and Voznitsa to pick their way through. Also, Vlietstra using each other. They are working very, very well side by side just in behind for 6th place between Barley and Muzeidis. Muzeidis stuck on the outside. He's going to go for 2 cars. He's now on the outside of Leechtra. What a move that is from Stavros. Bit of contact is there. That wall on the outside, very, very awkward. I'm going to run 3 wide, maybe. Barley really is stubborn. He does not want to lose these places whatsoever.
He certainly doesn't, and look at just this train of cars here for the lower parts of the top 10, top parts of the top 15. They're all getting so close between each other, just one after the other, and at some point someone is going to dive it down the inside as we're getting Lianos here a little bit further back, and he's got Danny van der Neet right behind him. We got Urchan as well trying to get involved. Van der Neet round the outside, Urchan trying to dive it up the inside. They're all bouncing off the wall coming out to turn 4, but they all still seem to be going in a straight line, which is good to see. As towards the front, we've got Jan Vosnitzer now diving it towards the inside. He's had a good restart, making up quite a few places, and now gets himself up onto the podium.
Brilliant stuff from the NetRace Grand Prix driver. They have lost a bit of time to Lo Mounier and Borja Milan, who have now got a bit of breathing space for the pack for the 2 out in front. Oh my word, that's 3 wide into turn 3 because Muzeidis completely sends one to the inside, goes in a bit deep. There's Fabian Barley to the inside of Prodan. They are going to run 2 wide on the exit, but Prodan not quite been able to get the run, so has to tuck in behind, utilise that slipstream once more. Fabian Barley, his momentum being completely killed now behind the likes of Jake Dennehan and Vleetstra, but still stubborn, still sending the move to the inside for P7. He does not want to give these moves up at all, but it is absolute carnage and absolute chaos. It really is a war zone out there.
It certainly is. We've got a car there on the inside of turn 3. Not quite sure. I think it's a lap down car there as we're getting Barley there. The 42 diving up the inside of Jake Dennehan, who's also having a good race, getting up back in towards the top 7 side by side on the exit. Here goes Jake Dennehan trying to get a bit of a run down towards turn number 1. Vleetstra, though, gets past Ballet there. Massive slide, though. Manages to catch it. Lianos also goes round the outside. Ballet is just going backwards and backwards in that number 42 machine, but I think he's actually managed to get Lianos there on the exit of turn 2, but these guys just sliding their way towards the first round of pit stops.
Slipping and sliding. You can definitely tell that those tires are going off slightly, but that's not doing them any good whatsoever, because the more the tires go off, the more they slide, the more they slide, the more the tires go off. So again, that negative feedback loop is not great to be a part of, but you can definitely start to imagine that they might think about a pit stop in the near future. Fabian Barley pushing the limit all over the back end of Lianos, going through turn 2, trying to see where he can go. He's going to stick to the right hand side because doesn't want to miss out on that draft, on that slipstream, because we've seen time and time again how easy it is for people to just completely barge their way through. There's Vleetstra to the inside of Jake Dennehan. That is the move of the day, really, darting the move to the inside of turn 3. Oh, that was flirting with disaster.
Yeah, big hit there. That I was mentioning that the barrier there on the exit of turn 4 sticks out, of course, just by the fact of it being there compared to the concrete barrier, and it just sticks out enough that it's right where you want your car to be. And as they come around again, come up towards turn 3 and 4, we've got Ballet now diving down the inside of Vleetstra. Jake Dennehan as well down the inside of Donut Pro down there to get himself out towards the top 5. Dennehan making moves on this restart. Fabian Ballet going backwards as they all make contact once again with that wall on turn 4.
Yeah, it is the theme, and Prodan, a little bit twitchy going into turn 1. There's Dennehan, Barley, sorry, to the inside Prodan. It was Dennehan getting a little bit squirrely off the exit of turn 4. Another caution is out, not entirely sure as to what, but that definitely is a good sign of what probably is the reason. I think a couple of cars behind, maybe just in behind Valente. There's Mirko Mancini, I think, getting off a little bit slow. That's the 33 machine. Oh, that is a shame. That is Vleetstra, who... that are honestly completely gutted for the driver that started on pole and has so far done really well. Another crash, and again it happened on the exit of turn 2.
Yeah,
overtake the safety
I won't
car
try and
catch leader.
I won't try and get a replay of that one, unfortunately, because of the lag we're experiencing. But the Vleetstra there, unfortunately, to lose those positions, as you mentioned, they were going side by side. There was loads of drives involved there. Just trying to see exactly who he was next to at the time. He was close to Urchan and Danny van der Neet. He was close to at the time as well. So that is sort of the group of drivers. Van der Neet has also dropped down a little bit as well. So certainly, yes, something has happened there. But we're getting another safety car procedure here. We're averaging about 10 laps of racing per safety car at this moment in time. But we're now halfway through the race. So watch out for when the pit lane opens, everyone diving into the pit lane, because you can get to the end of the race from here. But also, importantly, you save yourself a green flag stop, because if we go green and we get a 20 lap period of green flag, you're going to have to make the pit stop, especially as the tyres are starting to wear. So look out for a lot of the drivers diving it down the inside of turn 3 in just a few moments' time.
Oh yeah, for sure. It just makes sense to unanimously all come in, because you're going to benefit so much off it. There's Loic Monya not deciding to come in. Borja Milan does, Jan Wisnitzer does, and Mercedes, Denahan, Barley, everyone, bar 2. What is Monya doing here? What's the thought process, Cam?
It's a tricky one, because everyone's going to catch up. So we're under safety car, so everyone who stopped is going to catch up to the back of that RSR car, and then also the NetRex car coming in behind as well. So even if there's another caution in a few laps' time, those guys aren't going to pit. So Munier is then going to go to the back of the train, but then also if we then go green, he's going to have to make a green flag pit stop. So I think this was a bad call from the Frenchman, as we've got Lalu, Vac, and Carlos Martin, who we saw earlier dropping down with a potential drive-through. But with the way that it's worked out with the strategy, he's now back towards the front of the pack. So this is why you have to just keep rotating in the cycle and just try to get yourself to the front, because sometimes leading isn't always the best option. If we try and find where Borja Milan is, he's now behind Jake Denahan, actually, down in 13th place. So Jake Denahan has jumped up a position or 2 there in the pit stops.
Maybe taking some less fuel to, or maybe not taking all 4 tyres. Maybe, again, we don't know what he's done. We just know how old his current set of tyres are. But yeah, maybe some less fuel, maybe banking on this run being slightly short because of a caution or something like that. Again, we're not entirely sure. We won't know. But all these positions so far are provisional. We have to say that Lalu is in the net race lead. Same too with Thomas Vac in P3. He's sort of net P2. Carlos Martin, Harry Smith, maybe Michi Hoyer. Anyone that hasn't pit right now is net sort of up there, or provisionally up there at least, because again the strategy is so weird. It's so up and down. The lap cars now get their lap back once again, so they're going to cruise around and join the back of the train. But yeah, the strategy really a big diverse set of thought processes here. Whether you come in early, didn't pit under the caution, which to me just seems backwards, but for Monya it seems to be the better option. So I'm not entirely sure. I guess we're just going to have to find out in a few laps' time.
This is where it's difficult, because it's the better option now. But we mentioned fuel only goes 40-ish laps. Okay, with some cautions, maybe 45 or so, maybe a little bit more if you were saving.
End of this lap.
So he's going to have to pit within maximum the next 10 laps as they come in to green flag at the end of this lap. He's going to pit in maximum 10 laps. But his tyres are going to be absolutely dead as well. The only good thing for him is that the top 9 have all pit about half a stint ago. Everyone behind him, they're on fresher tyres, but they're not on brand new tyres. It is Vlietstra there in 10th place, who was the first to make that round of stops, who's actually cycled to the front as well of those people who also made the stop. So this is why it's almost a bit of a lottery sometimes with when the cautions comes out, where you are in the pack. But anyway, we're coming around turn 4 to get another restart. It's still Munier leading the way from the Frenchman, and Lalu is right behind him with Thomas Vac as well, as we come
green.
over half distance now at the Gateway 150. In the background, we're already getting Pinataro try and make some moves. Scotron is following him as well. They're getting up the inside of Kevin Morville, as there's other TX2 drivers in the background. Vlietstra there, who's the one who effectively caused that caution. He's trying to get up towards the front as well. Just showing you how chaotic this race can be. Get yourself to the front and try and stay there, but how long can Munier hold on for?
That is going to be the question. He got off to such a good launch. There's the 61 darting his way to the inside. That's Kevin Morville to the inside of Borja Milan. All carnage and chaos on this opening lap of the caution, coming on to now lap 39 of 66. Kevin Morville completely swamped. There goes Museda trying to dart his way to the left-hand side. Fabian Barley trying to follow him through. He's also got Erchan, his teammate, just in behind a lot of TX3 drivers on the grid. Same too with Netrex. They're all trying to dart their way through the chaos, but you can just see every car blitzing past the camera. They are going so fast. There's so many of them. It can be so overwhelming. Prodan as well. These are the bunch that did pit, but now they're completely surrounded. Oh no, that's a big off.
Yeah, that's Skovron there into the barriers. Actually, is he still going? He somehow is. That was a huge hit, though. Might have a lot of damage on that car as TX3 drivers dive down the inside. Ricardo Costa actually is trying to get past Skovron now, as well as these guys trying to make up those positions because they know this is just a game of getting towards the front, whether that's on overtaking, whether that's on strategy, on pit cycles. Just get yourself towards the front and see what can happen. There's the number 44 there of Liam Howard diving up the inside as well. A little bit, obviously, a little bit further down in the pack now. 18th position, but they're still just fighting so hard as we come towards the front. In the background, Skovron goes into the wall again as there's another caution coming out. Valente involved. I think that's Danny Van Der Neet involved there. Is that Riboli as well? Loads of cars involved this time around.
Big ouch. That is, I mean, for me, awesome. I love seeing massive crashes, but for those guys, it's going to sting. And yeah, that was a big one. And understandably so, yet another caution being brought out. So this definitely probably helps, like Moynier, with, you know, this roundabout being his pit window. We're going to take another look at what happened. Again, all it takes is one car to go off. All we saw there was Damien Skovron getting tagged around, but I think it was a Zancho car. No, it was a Wanako car. I'm not entirely sure as to who, but the number 3 Borja Milan, maybe. Yeah, and that just completely, it was just the catalyst of a chain reaction. It just completely snowballed from there. People got collected up in incidents, and understandably so. A lot of people taking a trip down the pit lane.
Yeah, that was not a nice one. So, yeah, this is a tricky situation. Lurk Monnier, 42 laps. Surely he's got to pit this time, Zach. Surely he's got to pit this time when pit lane opens. He must have not much fuel left. Yeah, not much fuel there in this car. We'll have to see how that Team Iris car does. Anthony Nispon out once again as we went roughly another 10 laps or so. Loads of drivers coming down the pit lane. Victor Ivanov is still in there, as we mentioned. Damien Skovron, Liam Howard, Valente's in there, and Matthias Harvik. I think it's Danny Van Der Neet. Loads of drivers trying to sort themselves out as they all work their way into a single file train. And I just wonder, Zach, as this gets towards the end of the race, I think we're going to see a 5-lap dash at the end. There's probably going to be another late caution, and it's just going to be all about cycling yourself to the front. And that is going to be the difficult part here, I would say. But out of the drivers who haven't stopped a while ago is Jan Voznitsa now, who leads that pack in 7th place with an 8-lap stint at this moment.
Can we finish under caution?
We will, because we don't add laps as such, so we potentially will, but obviously Race Direction will try and finish green where possible.
It's open for lead cars.
So, yeah, that is... yeah, I mean, if we do get that 5-lap dash to the end, it could result in a finish under caution, which is not what we want at all. But I hope we do have sort of that last 10 laps, 15 maybe, just to stretch the action out just a little bit more of people just going at it, because there's not that long left. These positions mean a lot more, because right now, Loic Moynier has to come into the pit lane. Lalu is a little bit out of sequence in terms of where they are in the... in the pit stops and things like that. Right now, everything's sort of a little bit up in the air, a little bit arbitrary. But when we get to that end bit where everyone's sort of settled in as to where they should be, then it starts to matter so much more. There's Loic Moynier now finally into the pits, right towards the end of the caution period, though, which, I mean, unless pit lane's only just been open for lead cars, which I think it has been, but still waiting quite a while. He's going to tumble all the way to the back of the grid.
Yeah, he is. His only saving grace is obviously once you get into the pit lane, you can sort of accelerate faster than the safety car, so he would have gained a bit there. But yeah, he's going to be dropping to the back of the pack, and everyone who pit around him, your likes of Denahan, Mazidis, they're up there in 10th place now, and he's going to be right towards the back as we had the valet car come in. I can't remember exactly who that is. Might be Mazunda, maybe towards the back. But yeah, certainly interesting calls there from Meunier. We'll see how that one works out, because now again, if there's another caution, and if the other people then need to pit for that splash that we thought they might, then they'll be dropping back behind him. So certainly an interesting one. Lalu, though, he cycled himself to the front, and he's only halfway through his stint, 25 laps. There's 20 to go at the line. He might be able to make that on fuel, It just depends how these tyres last.
In theory as
Lap
well,
cars
if
may
everything,
unlap themselves now.
if there is
Lap
another
cars may
caution,
unlap themselves now
everyone's
on the high
probably
line.
going to come
Please
into the
be
pit lane
careful.
anyway, so he might actually be able to pit with everyone else. So I think Lalu is in a really good place. Same too with Vac and maybe also Carlos Martin in third place. Still is an interesting prospect for him because Lalu's not slow. Lalu's got some good pace, and as the lap cars get the wave around and we'll join the back of the grid and then we'll go green in a couple laps time. Yeah, do not count out Lalu. Do not count out a surprise winner in this race because it can go any way possible. You know, we go green, you know, someone crashes, boom, another caution, and then we go green again, and then a big protagonist in this race is wiped out. You know, nothing's secure, and the chaos and carnage is so indiscriminate that it can happen to anyone at any time. So we definitely have sort of the potential for a stellar finish in this race with, you know, some surprise winner.
I think we will definitely get some surprises, that is for sure. The order is obviously completely different to what you would potentially
We will go
expect.
green at the end of this lap. We will go green at the end of this lap.
As we get to the call to go green. That is, of course, just how oval racing goes. Chukwupeka Lalu for Royal Blue Racing will be taking it away out of turn 4 this time around. Thomas Vac and Carlos Martin in behind, Harry Smith and Michi Hoyer, the top 5,
Drivers,
all been out for a long time. Do they have enough fuel to get to the end? Are we going to go green to the end? We are about to find out. The drivers working their way down towards 3 and 4 to end lap 47. So there'll be 18 laps to go as we come across the line. It's definitely going to be a very close finish. It's going to be a very unpredictable finish. We do not know who is going to work out. Will we get more cautions? Let's see. The number 15 car now out of the final corner chooses when to accelerate, and then green flag will be waving. And when does the finger? He waits, and he waits a long time to go green, but now we start accelerating. Michi Hoy there starting to go down the inside of Harry Smith. In the background as also Jan Woznitzer tries to get up the inside of Vlietstra. Woznitzer been making so many moves, and he does that. He makes it stick. So does Michi Hoyer up the inside of Harry Smith, and now Jan Woznitzer comes up to already get inside the top 5 on this restart, trying to follow through Michi Hoyer, but can he just sleep in front of his teammate? Yes, he can, but Vlietstra now diving it towards the inside of turn 3 as we come around to start this first lap of the restart, and once again, the overtaking continues.
Oh my word, Jan Woznitzer keeping the foot in all the way around the outside there, both Vlietstra and now Michi Hoyer. There goes Vlietstra using the draft to follow him through. Michi Hoyer being completely mugged off here from 4th to 6th. Jan Woznitzer on a charge sideways there by, I think that's Prodan, side by side with maybe Jake Dennehan or Harry Smith, and that really was very close to disaster. But Jan Woznitzer is flying in these early stages, of course, with his fresh tyre. Same too with Vlietstra, 14 and 15 laps respectfully on those sets of tyres compared to those around them of Lalu, Vac, Martin and Hoyer, who've been on that for 27. Significant difference and a significant advantage.
Uber to the front. Thomas Vac looking down the inside. Lalu goes a bit deep though. That's going to be a slower run as the 47 comes towards the inside, side by side on the exit. The RSR driver trying to go. Does he have enough? Does he have enough down the inside turn 3? He might just do, as Lalu is potentially going to have to defend this on the outside. Carlos Martin and his teammate Woznitzer trying to come through as well. Lalu goes down to potentially 3rd place here as Martin gets the run off of turn 4, and he's made it. Contact in the background with the TX3 cars, but as we continue towards turn number 1, can Woznitzer come through as well? Doesn't look like he can quite just do that. Maybe on the exit though, sliding all these cars as they've been on these tyres for quite a while. 30 laps for these guys at the front as Carlos Martin now goes to the front up the inside.
Low line and a high line maybe starting to form with the likes of Martin and Woznitzer on the low side to the left, and you can see there's Carlos Martin trying to saw his way to the outside for the race lead. Also Woznitzer trying to push Thomas Vac through, round off yet another lap off the exit of turn 4. There's another car. There's Vlietstra trying to get into the mix, also with Michi Hoyer trying to make amends. It's going to be Carlos Martin that leads, but Woznitzer in 2nd place, or is it going to be Vac who still is trying to keep his foot into the outside, not quite able to. Vlietstra as well there, but he's going to be completely high out to dry, maybe even freight train. Someone's tackled the ball, and another caution in this race. That was big.
Michi Hoyer spinning around on the exit of turn 2. He's managed to get it going actually, but the caution was already called. But that was certainly an interesting place to get spun. That was halfway down the back straight. And as we settle down, Carlos Martin gets to the front with his teammate Jan Woznitsa. That was a great restart from those Netrex boys. Tomasz Vak drops in into 3rd place, and Lalu from the lead down to 4th. Leetstra still hanging in there in 5th place as well, with Harry Smith and Muzaidis rounding out the top 7, with Jake Denhan just behind. That was a chaotic restart. Pit's already open, and we are getting towards the end. So Zach, this is starting to turn into what we want. This racing is getting better and better as the race goes on.
Oh, it really is. It's now, what are we, 13 laps from then? We'll probably have around about 10 or 9 laps to the end after this caution. Anything can happen. We are definitely going to get that sort of sprint to the finish that we were looking forward to, but now it's sort of crunch time in terms of strategy. You have to commit to it now. No one coming into the pit lane, not even sort of the likes of Lalu or anyone, because I think they're committing to the end. I think they're hoping that, you know, it's just they're just going to be able to, attrition their way out. They're going to try and outlast the race on those tires, and hopefully they've got enough fuel to get to the end. But yeah, that was again just showing how good the racing action can be, because we had 4 cars all fighting for the lead all the way through, you know, a good 3-4 laps of racing. It was fantastic, and the stakes are really high. You know, they're fighting for a championship, they're fighting for some prize money. They're going to want to go for it.
Absolutely, and here is Lurk Mernier leading the race for so long, down in 30th place. The strategy did not work out for him. He stayed way too long, and he is now going to really struggle to get to the back. As you say, I think everyone is now obviously going to try to go to the end. These caution periods have helped them save the fuel. And even those staying out, even those like Carlos Martin, 32 laps now, even with about 12 laps to the end, with all these caution periods, he should have been able to save enough fuel to get well over the 40 lap mark I was talking roughly that it was. And they should be able to get to the end. It's just about, do they have the tyres to hold on and fight? If someone like Woznitsa, who's got 13 lap younger tyres, if he can hold on to his tyres as well, he should have a lot more grip coming towards the end.
Oh yeah. Again, it could literally come down to that: who has saved their tires, the best. Because we said at the start, we said during the sprint race, we said during qualifying, you need to keep your tires in a good window. You need to keep them fresh. You need to keep them nice and sort of mild in terms of temperatures. Don't want them too hot. Don't want them too cold. And when you get to the sort of the end, when everything's rubbing in and all that, you know, the stakes are the highest. Things start to matter just that little bit more. You can't be affording to have any disadvantage, and those that have that advantage are gonna, really have that advantage exaggerated, because everyone around them, relative to everyone around them, they might be on, slightly used tires, but to everyone around them who are even or green at the end of the slap, they're going to gain so much, and there's not really much that anyone else can do, because already
doesn't make any sense.
Already the race is pretty much over by the time they can even react to it. So go green at the end of this lap, and well, with 10 laps left to go, we'll just have to see how it goes.
Absolutely, here they come, and the drivers there just getting the word of warning that there's not going to be a caution in the last few laps of the race, and we will have to see how that one comes out. How aggressive do the drivers get, but also not knowing that they're not going to be able to come back from it. 10 laps to go. Carlos Martin leading the way. 34 laps already on this stint. Jan Woznitsa behind, 13 laps less. 2 Netrex drivers coming out of the final corner. When do they go green? Can they hold on to take back this battle? Harry Smith there in the background trying to get out the inside already of Leetstra towards turn number 1, as we're getting 3 wide as well. Denhan on the outside, the Wanako car there of Acosta on the inside, just backing out of that one a little bit. Harry Smith now up the inside of Leetstra, still trying to hold on to this as we get towards the back straight for another time. Side by side still between the two, bouncing off the wall, and let's see how this one goes. 9 laps to go.
Oh yes, still a few laps, still definitely a lot of possibilities, still side by side between Vleetstra and Lalu, who's trying to make his way up a little bit. Lalu just has to tuck in behind Vleetstra, able to stay in front. Fabian Barley also to the fringes of the top 10. Here's Michihora on the inside of Chan. He got in a bit of a squabble just before the caution, trying to again make amends for it, but Carlos Martin, Jan Woznitsa very close, both sort of breaking away for a 2-horse race out in front. Could it only be between the 2 Netrex drivers?
It might just be. They've clearly worked this one out well with the strategy, with the tyres potentially. Can they hold on? Carlos Martin also he's not actually racing at his personal home because he is on holiday. He's racing somewhere else, but still able to get up to the pace at a completely different rig, which is good to see from the Spaniard. Harry Smith there rolling out wide. Jake Dennehan, his sister teammate behind him. Tribute Racing versus Netrex Racing. As we come towards turn 3 and 4, is Dennehan going to slide it down the inside? No, he's not, but in the background, Mazidis is going to have a bit of a look, thinking about a bit of contact between the two as Dennehan continues his way up the field. Contact between the wall and Mazidis, and that is going to give Costa a bit of a run towards turn 1.
Oh, this could get spicy. You can see the Monaco driver now to the inside. They are going to run too wide. You really can do that. The wide line, you can carry the momentum through, and it oftentimes might actually be a little bit more beneficial, especially if you emerge still in the slipstream. There goes Fabian Barley, the TX3 driver, looking to the inside of turn number 3. He does love this move to just send one to the inside, and if he can tuck in behind, then stretch his advantage out. You can see their Costa getting a little bit squirmy on the exit. Now only 6 laps left of this race to go. Jake Dennehan up into 7th place. He's done a phenomenal drive from 21st at the start of the sprint race. Now up into 7th place, and now 6th. He's side by side with Harry Smith. Managed to get that place. Could still be a top 5 for Jake Dennehan.
Might be as Mazidis now getting the run down the inside of Harry Smith as well. Harry Smith had a big moment there through turn number 2 as through comes Fabian Ballet down the inside of that famous corner in turn number 3. Coming to end lap 61 here as the laps start to count down here at the Gateway 150. It's been a very entertaining evening of racing. A few cautions so far, but now we're into the final few laps. It's very unlikely to be called caution. It's going to go green to the end, and let's see how this one works. What risks do these drivers take, knowing that they are not going to be able to get any track position back from that? Looks like Jake Dennehan is just going to be able to hold on into that position, so we'll go to the front to see how the two Netrex guys are doing. The 14 and the 38. Carlos Martin on 40-lap-old tyres, 4 laps to go, is still just about holding on from his teammate.
Is Vesnitsa just waiting, though? That could be the thing, because 13 laps is going to make a difference. This is side by side. This is for the podium place. Vlietstra has said, you know what? We're not fighting for first or second. I'm going for the podium. To the inside he goes on much fresher tyres versus Thomas Frack as well. Oh my word, drifting his way through turn 2. That is impressive. Still on the exit. That could compromise his run. Here comes Frack now to the left-hand side, rubbing and racing for the podium place with only 3 laps to go. The RSR driver, the 47, darts to the inside of turn 3, but he's not quite managed to make it work. Here comes Lalu and Dennehan as well with the trainer Musadis, Barley, Smith and Costa. This is really heating up for the podium.
And we still don't know who is going to finish at what position here, because any of these guys could just slip and slide and start to lose their momentum, lose their time, as Lalu now round the outside of turn 2. Is he going to think about the outside of the number 47? He is. He's now going to get the slipstream as well off Vlietstra. 3 laps to go, including this one. Is getting tense between these drivers. Vlietstra holding on for that position in 3rd place, and now Lalu gets up into 4th. Vax losing down. Was there a bit of contact in the background there potentially between some of these drivers as they slip and slide to come on to the penultimate lap?
Oh my word, 2 laps left to go. The race leader's undecided. The podium place is undecided. A lot of things still to be answered. Over the last 65 laps of racing action, we have seen everything. But now it comes down to this. Carlos Martin versus his teammate Jan Vesnitsa. 43 laps old tyres versus 30. They've got now 6 corners left in this race. Can Vesnitsa do anything?
He is going to have to struggle, I think, to get through. We'll have to see how Carlos Martin holds on that final lap, as this is the battle for the podium. Any one of these 7-8 drivers on your screen could do this. On to the lap 66, final lap of the race here at the Gateway 150 feature race. Who's going to dive down the inside? Is Dennehan going to do anything? Is Vag going to do anything at this moment? Vlietstra holds on. Lalu diving it to the inside, though. Is he going to be able to hold on? I don't think he just will, as we're getting towards the final couple of corners of this race. Is Jan Vesnitsa going to do anything at the front, or is Carlos Martin going to hold on? Vesnitsa dives it towards the inside of turn 3 and 4. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to get that one, though. Carlos Martin, master in the strategy, and the Spaniard comes off the final corner to take the victory here at the feature race for the Gateway 150. What a finish for the Netrex drivers. Can Vlietstra hold on? Yes, he just about can, from Lalu, Dennehan and Mazidis.
Wow. Is all you can really say. I'm speechless. What a race. What a finale to that race as well. It must be said, sorry. But yeah, Carlos Martin, Jan Vesnitsa, the Netrex guys did such a brilliant job. And everyone can give themselves a round of applause, a pat on the back, whatever, because Vlietstra hang on for 3rd place. It's all kicking off now post-race. It's brilliant between the Netrex guys. Just you can't write that stuff. That's what I love about stock car racing, about over racing, is because you go into it and it's never how you expect. There's always something to spice things up just a little bit. Carlos Martin, a very deserved winner. Jan Wisnitzer for his championship. That is massive news for him as well. But also the likes of Vlietstra, an academy driver, a podium after a top 10 in sprint race. He's been through the wars today as well. Lalu and Denahan, such massive stories, big comeback stories. Everyone had their rough moments, but some people thrived even so.
Yes, they certainly did, and that was definitely a race to remember in the end. Here is how they lined up at the finish. Carlos Martin, Jan Wisnitzer, Netrex 1-2, followed by the Academy independent driver there for ETCG for Jan Vlietstra in third place. What a result for him. Lalu Denahan rounding out the top 5, Mazidis, Vac, Ballet, Smith and Ricardo Costa rounding out your top 10. Urchan and Hoyer rounding out the top 12. They potentially could have had better days, just unfortunately involved in a few incidents between themselves. And Lianos, Pignataru, Prodan, Van Den Eet, Morville, Zux, Mancini and Snenker there in 20th. And that is the debut for Henk there in 20th place, and very good debut as well. Also, another academy driver, Mazumda and Munir with that bad strategy, unfortunately not able to hold on at the front. He had definitely had some good pace today. Raboli, Harvick, Milan, Howard, Savlev, Ivanov, Tucson and Sonneveld rounding out the top 30. On to the final page, we've got Shepard, Scovron, Valente, and unfortunately some other DNFs with Rainey and Cedo Via. They're unfortunately not getting towards the end of the race, but Zach Sweeney, that was certainly a very, very entertaining race. We enjoyed it very much so, and I'm pretty glad that we could see some good racing action tonight.
Can't wait for California and for Daytona. If Gateway 150 has given this good of a show, it's now marked the halfway point of the season. It's all gone so quickly, but over racing, again, as I say, it looks so simple, so boring. Maybe it can be easy to get complacent and say, oh, they're just turning left. No, then they're not. Well, yeah, they are, but they're doing it with a little extra couple of steps along the way, and so much carnage, chaos, drama, storytelling all throughout the race. You can sort of write a novel and talk about the race in so much detail. There's so much going on up and down, and it is just awesome.
Absolutely, and hopefully we will try and get a word. We've got Carlos Martin and Jan Wisnitzer here for the Netrex team, of course, having such a good race, and hopefully they're here to answer some questions. Jan, are you here? Are you ready to answer? Because I just want to see how these Netrex guys did, because it was certainly a very interesting race. Jan, at the end there, you had such a close attempt to overtake your teammate Carlos Martin. How close was that at the end?
Oh, it was very close. Honestly, I didn't expect it at the beginning of the race to be fighting for the victory, but yeah, I tried my best to go for the victory, but it wasn't really enough at the end. I think my tires just went off, but anyway, it's still an amazing result, and I'm very happy after all these incidents that were happening behind me. So yeah, also very lucky to avoid all of them, and after the bad luck I've had in the first race, yeah, just an amazing result.
And how have you been enjoying this stock car? It's obviously something quite different from the normal Formula cars, the normal GT cars that are driven on rFactor 2. Is it a car that you're really getting the hang of?
Well, honestly, after the first time I heard that we're gonna drive these cars, I was not really happy, since last 2 years we did Indy Pro, and I did really good there. But now I can say after the second race, after the second round, that I actually like them. It's enjoyable. It's something different. That's I don't think any big league in rF2 does it, and it's well, apart from the driving standards, it's actually fun.
Yeah, of course, it's a very difficult race, and you, of course, were having some great results in Indy Pro last season as well. We come to California, Apple Valley Speedway next week. Are you looking forward to that track as well? One that we've obviously raced on before the last couple of years.
Definitely, it's as long as I have fun, I'm looking forward to it. And today I had fun, even though there were incidents, but P2. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, in general. Well, I actually bought a track today to race, so I didn't practice at all. So maybe that's the thing to do, to just buy the track on the race day and then get a good result.
Absolutely, and we'll also get a word with your teammate, Carlos Martin, because of course it was a NetRex 1-2. Carlos, you told me before the race, well, you're not even racing from your own rig today. Jan, of course, not even having the track until today, so maybe not the best prep for NetRex, but you came out on top, so how was that race for you?
Well, it was crazy. I mean, some hours ago I was partying in Amsterdam and then spend 120 euros in an Uber, and yeah, I need the money. So yeah, it's insane. I don't know what to say. It was 1 hour and 30 minutes before getting into practice and start doing some laps, and I was bad, but I was lucky. The luck I didn't have these past 2 years in some of FSR races, I was competitive. Today, it went everything together.
Absolutely. You didn't necessarily have the best FSR main 2022 season, and being a reserve driver here today, you're going to maybe try and get a seat for the upcoming races as well, considering you obviously had a good result today?
Funny enough, I didn't have any offers, so the thing is, yeah, I mean, I'm open always to race. This year was having a lot of issues with my knee, and I'm still not recovered, but slowly I'm able to do a bit more stuff. If it was this Formula Pro, I wouldn't be able to drive, but this is really lenient on the brakes, which is my issue. So it's all good. I mean, I don't know. Jan gifted me the race. He didn't want to overtake me, and if he doesn't test for the next race, he's not gonna race anymore. So I don't care what he says.
Yeah, so anyway, good job for you, so congratulations for that one, and yeah, hopefully we maybe see you on the grid, because of course we've got 2 races left this season. We've got the California 175 and the Daytona 225 coming up. California next week, and then a couple of weeks after that for Daytona. But that pretty much rounds it up here for the Gateway 150. It's been some
DMs are open. Message me, please. Thank you.
yes, get Carlos Martin in your team. But for sure, that pretty much rounds it up for the Gateway 150. It's been chaotic. It's been loads of safety cars, and we didn't know who was going to come out on the strategy, but NetRex came out on top. Let's see if they can do that next week in California. So until then, we wish you a very warm goodbye.